Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Don't Praise the Machine. This is episode number 159. As always, I'm one of your hosts. I go by the name Alexander Holland. I'm here in a somewhat overcast and disappointing late April Berlin, Germany. And as always, sat down there in good old Ridgy-Didge, Melbourne, Australia. He's got to be the number one tenured professor of podcasting. He's got to be the one called...
Junior Boost, Maloney.
The Junior Boost, Professor Boost. Oh, Professor Boost, can you help me with me homework? Is what you say to your students. To what you is what you say to your students. Are you in the middle of the teaching phase now, John? You're in class.
Yeah,
middle of is class end or class out?
Classes in.
Class dismissed.
Exercise books
or class in.
Exercise books are open, and a lot of spot tests, a lot of pen licenses being handed out at Melbourne Law School.
You just
around this time of year.
You make them do a prayer before every lesson as a bit of a throwback to your.
Yeah, of course.
You said, "Look, I know that this is optional, but this reminds me of my schoolboy days, which were the happiest days of my life. You kids don't want to see what I have to go home do these days. I remember just going home to a peanut butter sandwich and cartoons.
Some cheese squares, an afternoon show.
Sorry. The only thing that brings me joy is pretending that I'm a boy back in a weird Catholic school in the 90s. And so we must do a prayer before every Melbourne law lecture.
And we have to write AMDG in the corner of our notes.
What did that
every lesson.
fucking hell? What did that mean?
Remember that? It meant Ad Moriam Dei Gloriam, which was something like to God the greater glory. But they sort of dumbed it down to mean all my deeds to God. They made that a kind of probably a way to memorize it. So you knew it was AMDG. And we had to write it in the corner of the book.
That is mad.
In our weird little culty school.
I'd completely forgotten that. Wow, you have a great memory for that kind of stuff. And what would...
Well, it's only because I've re-implemented those practices as a teacher.
John, as you can see today, you mentioned that I'm wearing a nice... Actually, I can kind of stand up.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
I've got my little tights on too.
Dynamic.
Yeah. So I'm wearing my...
You've got your tights.
I'm wearing my Nike Air Artist in Residence Hola Lou limited edition collab, and I got to give it a huge shout out to my dear friend Francesca, one of my bestest, dearest friends, who bought it for me as my 40th birthday present a couple of years ago, and she could not
a great gift.
have got me a better gift. And I have this thing on all winter, and as I said, it's a bit chilly today. It was 3 when I went out for my jog. I'm getting ready for the Copenhagen Marathon. I don't know if I mentioned. Have I mentioned that?
Oh, cool. No, I don't think so.
I was going to run the Hamburg Marathon, and then I foolishly double booked myself, but it's all worked out for the best because I managed to score a resale Copenhagen Marathon ticket. So next week,
sweet.
This time next week, Friday next week, I fly to Copenhagen, stay with my dear friend Sarah, who's a Don't Praise the Machine. Shout out, Sarah. 2 nights in Copenhagen. I get to run through those streets of Copenhagen. I'm spending...
Cool. So you're at a point of peak training.
I'm at a point of peak. Well, this is taper, so that means that you start to go off the peak so that your body is in preparation. And I'm spending one night. I'm spending the Friday night with Sarah, and I'm spending the second night with Tasmania's own Queen Mary, who said she'll have me on a Saturday night with Freddie Frederick.
Bet she will.
And she said, we're going to get you so G'd up for the marathon on Sunday. And I was laughing this morning, giving myself a little smile and being quite contemplative because I finished my run this morning at a little park that's near my house. And as I finished the run and walked through the park, there were birds chirping, and a little squirrel just ran in front of me, and a huge smile went over my face. I just felt so connected to things.
Aww.
And then I thought, the whole world used to be a park, John. We've covered it because the rest of my run was entirely urban. It's all concrete. I literally run on Tempelhofer Feld, which is an old airport with runway, so it's just concrete. And I just thought, I'm having this little moment of connection with this little squirrel, but before we started covering everything with asphalt and bricks, the whole world was a park, and I just have.
It's true.
And you would have just.
You want to go back to Park World?
I want to go back to Park World, and it does make sense how divorced we've become from nature, and because of how stark that moment is with the squirrel running in front of me. I guess in a way it's kind of nice, because if I was like a before pavement time man, I guess I just wouldn't give a shit about squirrels, because I'd be like, I see them.
Probably, you'd be more concerned about spearing it and eating it.
Exactly. So maybe, but it did.
It's a happy accident. See you, squirrel.
Yeah. But it did make me stand there and watch the squirrel, and I thought about all the concrete, and I started singing Earth Song by Michael Jackson.
Don't it all seem to go?
What? Yeah, that's true. I did Joni Mitchell. Started singing Joni Mitchell. That is a great reference.
Paradise.
I'll be a paradise. I much prefer the Counting Crows version.
Yeah, me too.
But I was also, I
listen to that on my morning walks, or if it's a rainy day, I listen to Coffee Black and Egg White.
I love that song, Colorblind. I used to be able to play that on the piano because it's got that beautiful piano line.
Oh, it does, yeah.
Pull me out from inside. Yeah. But yeah, it was
classics.
I was singing Earth Song by Michael Jackson, watching the squirrel, just going, what have we done to the world? Look what we've done. As I was like,
not fucking getting lectured to by that man.
There's a line in that song that goes, there's a line in Earth Song that goes, did you ever stop to notice all the children dead from war? Or something like that. Right?
Oh, wow.
And it just made me think, yeah, you're only gutted about that because you didn't get to have Adam Mike.
Just a wasted opportunity. Fuck's sake. Oh, dear.
But enough of that silliness, John. You wrote to me in the week when I said to you, what's happening in your neck of the woods this week, pal? And you said, something's really been on my mind, and I want to let you and the Don't Praise the Machine community hear about it this Tuesday.
It's a very, very serious and weighty topic. Al, why are we so obsessed with old burgers? That's what I want to know.
As a species.
Yeah. So I follow this person on Instagram who lives here in Melbourne, and she's a local journalist called Jackie Felgate. And I've only been following her for a short time. She's worked for a couple of the major free-to-air television stations in Australia, Channel 7 and Channel 10. She's also worked on the classic local talkback radio station 3AW. And so she's got a real focus on storytelling of the kind of local to hyper-local kind that you might expect. And it's quite fun to follow her content because she kind of has she has a very direct relationship with her followers, many of whom live in Melbourne, and they will send her content and she'll directly post out some of that content, or maybe she'll turn it into stories for her to present on the radio or whatever. But often she just posts it on her Instagram story. So somebody will be driving across the bridge, the Westgate Bridge here in Melbourne, and they'll say, oh, look, there was a truck on fire. Here's a photo of or a short video of the fiery truck. And she's like, here it is, everyone. And I quite like that sort of fairly rubbishy local news in my information diet. But the other day she posted a screenshot of a text that she'd received from somebody, and then a photo that she'd received accompanying the text. And this is where my pondering started. So the text said, Hey Jackie, a bit of a weird and funny one, but my mum just announced that she threw out a Macca's cheeseburger that she's kept at the top of our fridge for 20 years. She wanted to do a little experiment to see the level of preservatives in their food. No smell or mold or anything. An icon of our family that's been quoted many times by our family and friends. The era is over. And the photo showed, as you would expect, a burger sitting on top of a fridge that had, 20-year-old style wrapping and looked in a fairly sorry state, but not obviously in a state of decay, just a bit kind of discolored and stale. And it occurred to me this was a type of story that I'd seen many times before, and I didn't really understand why that was, because it's such a specific thing to go, I'm going to specifically go to McDonald's and get a burger, and then rather than eat it, I'm just going to leave it for months or years and show everyone that it hasn't decayed. And there are so many stories that follow that pattern. I did a bit of a survey online, turned up a lot of stories that followed this pattern. So, there was a 2020 story from delish.com about a woman who kept a McDonald's meal for 24 years. There was a story from the Mail that said, not so fast food, McDonald's burger didn't decompose after 24 years in storage, which I think refers to that same scenario. There was somebody in the 1970s bought a McDonald's burger and then set it in resin and then famously kept that burger, still has it to this day. There was a guy called Casey Dean, an Australian guy who in 2019 was interviewed on all the kind of morning TV shows in Australia because they love this kind of rubbish. And he had been a country kid in the 90s. He'd been driving around with his mates. They'd gone to the local Macca's. They'd bought a huge quantity of Macca's and eaten it in the car. And they had this one burger that none of them could finish. So he jokingly said, I'll save it for later. And then it became this kind of running joke in the friendship group that he just kept saving it and saving it. And so, 25 years later, still had it and was describing in great detail to the interested hosts on this morning show. Oh yeah, no, it still looks pretty normal. Like you wouldn't think it was 25 years old.
And got 15 minutes out of that. Carl Stefanovic.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So is it hard? Is it hard, mate? Yeah, it's pretty hard, Carl.
Exactly.
I bet it wouldn't be too good
classic.
Bet it wouldn't be too good to eat now. No, probably. I'm not going to try. Nah, probably best you don't, mate. Probably best you don't. Is it hard?
Not even a little bite? No.
Already said that. The producer's just going like, extend.
Tell us. I just want to take you through each of the ingredients. So, how's the beef doing? What about the bun? So, then there was this thing, this guy who went by the name Pappy Cam, and he published a TikTok reel where he had found a burger in the wheel well of his car that someone had left there, and then he smashed it with a sledgehammer, and because it was so hard and it calcified, but it seemed to have been there for a long time, and again, it was in a miraculously well-preserved state, which always seems to puzzle everyone and always seems to lead to people accusing McDonald's of having some sort of sinister magical ingredients that stop things from ever going off. And you think like, well, why would they want their burgers to last for 25 years? That does not, that's not in their interests. It's a waste of technology.
It's true. It's so true because they need their food to last 10 minutes. That's how long it has to last.
And so when this guy put this thing out on TikTok and people started, doing the same thing in the comments that they always do with these stories, people going, fucking McDonald's, they're putting weird shit in our burgers. And then McDonald's actually put out a statement and said, in order to decompose, you need certain conditions, specifically moisture. Without sufficient moisture, either in the food itself or the environment, bacteria and mold may not grow, and therefore decomposition is unlikely. But I'm sure that's a statement they've put out several times before, and it seems not to placate people for any length of time. And I looked into it, and there was a kind of deep dive scientific attempt to find out what was going on, which was done in the Serious Eats magazine. And the author put together a sample of kind of 9 different burgers to try and identify what variables might be in play here and what might be the key differences between something that goes off and something that doesn't. So, he had like a plain McDonald's hamburger just sitting outside of its wrapper. Then he had one with a McDonald's patty, but a non-McDonald's store-bought bun. Then he had the opposite, a McDonald's bun with a patty that he'd made himself. And then one which was store-bought, etc. And different sizes. And he put all these charts together and measured over the next few days the drop in moisture content in the burgers and the level of mold growth. And essentially what he found was that, if it's big enough, then it won't dry out fast enough to avoid getting moldy, because dries out for 3 or 4 days. By that point, the bacteria starts setting in, and if there's still enough moisture in it, then it'll rot. But if there's not, it will just kind of, there might be a little circle of mold, and then the mold will stop and the burger will remain essentially looking much the same as it always did. And it's interesting because we've got this kind of... we've obviously got a strange... It probably goes back to the point you made earlier about us no longer living in park world, that we don't really have a good understanding of how the natural world acts on our food. And so we just assume that something will rot into kind of, vapor in a couple of weeks, but actually that's not how things work. And then people only really do this with McDonald's burgers. So then they've just kind of identified something sinister about the McDonald's burger. And I don't know. I love that. It's kind of it's the equivalent of a car fire for journalists and viewers. It's like a repeating story that every few months or years will get wheeled out, and it sort of doesn't really tell you anything new, but everyone's like, wow, look at that. It's 20 years old and it just looks like it's off the shelf, out of the cook kitchen.
There's a few factors that make it work. One of them being the main one being that McDonald's is a universally understood company that everybody has in their city. So, for example, if I was to say, "Oh, I went down to the local German butcher shop on the street and I bought a sausage and I left it out and it didn't decompose," and people are going to be, "Well, I have no opinion on this because I don't know anything about that place." And as you say, it also, another factor is that it leans into the universal narrative that McDonald's is this sort of evil corporation that is putting trash ingredients into all of its food, unlike any other company.
That's right.
And so it is perfect because you can be in Australia and you can say, or you could be in Italy. You could be in Italy and just say, "Oh, look, I bought a Bolognese Big Mac limited edition from the Milan McDonald's, and it didn't decompose." And that story will just get trotted out across the web, and everyone will go, "Fucking McDonald's again! I don't know what they're putting in our burgers." Actually,
Bolognese
also
Big Mac.
In the Bolognese Big Mac, I brought up, John, the response that you were talking about. You can go to this is great. This is actually on the URL is corporate.mcdonalds.com. So they put out all of their statements, and this one's actually from 2020. So they have to keep defending themselves. Okay. And their PR response is under the heading "Response to Myth that McDonald's burgers do not decompose." And this is quite short, so I'll just read the whole thing. It says, "In the right environment, our burgers, like most other foods, could decompose. But in order to decompose, you need certain conditions, specifically moisture. Without sufficient moisture, either in the food itself or the environment, bacteria and mold may not grow, and therefore decomposition is unlikely. So if food is or becomes dry enough, it is unlikely to grow mold or bacteria or decompose. Food prepared at home that is left to dehydrate could see similar results. So it's like, look, if your mother makes a lasagna and it doesn't get enough moisture, then it's also just going to turn to a brick that'll be there for 40 years. But we don't
If you want to put it on top of
slagging
your
off.
fridge.
If you want to put it on top of your fridge, or if you want to hide mama's lasagna in the wheel well of a truck for 30 years, go for your life.
Yeah.
And we'd love to see that as a fucking... That's not really a sexy story on morning television, is it?
No,
my mum made a lasagna. Imagine that as a story. My mum made a lasagna and I didn't put it away for 30... And here it is. It's still here. Oh,
Here it
look at
is.
this. This guy's mum made a lasagna and it's still there 30 years later as a brick. That's not a story.
Maybe when your mum passes, you could also dehydrate her and then have her carrying the lasagna for all time.
Made me think also
Mummified.
about... I read this week about one of those... You're more up on this than me, John. Do you remember the name of those various... The names they give to the various men and women that they pull out of ice, of permafrost that have been there?
yeah.
I read
Like
another...
Ötzi and stuff.
It was Ötzi, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah,
I knew
okay.
you'd be able to help me out with that. I was reading about Ötzi this week.
One of my common Wikipedia deep dives. Yeah,
I mean, Ötzi's in cheeseburger condition,
exactly. Yeah, I was. That's right. When I read that statement from McDonald's about the lack of moisture, I was thinking about, because there's these chili in the Andes and in these kind of dry areas of the Atacama Desert. There's ancient mummies essentially that might have just accidentally died or accidentally been preserved after they died because it was very dry. And that's essentially what's going on with the burger, I guess. Becomes an accidental part of the cultural record. But it does make me think, wouldn't it be great to find just a fully preserved 2,000-year-old burger? How long is this gonna last?
And then
could it be the trash heap of historical items that gets unearthed in 5,000-10,000 years? There's just going to be a cheeseburger in there.
And future archaeologists pulling it out of a wheel well. They'll find an old truck and then they'll go, oh, there's nothing left here but a little bit of wheel well and this. They wouldn't even know what it was. And they'd say, what is this? What is this? What is this strange food stuff?
Yeah.
This might be from that ancient peoples that we're trying to understand more about, who got wiped out, and we don't quite know how.
Yeah, that's right. They used to eat discs composed of cow meat and bread.
These savages used to consume animals, the animals that we've come to love.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. But
it'll be...
Yeah, sorry, you go.
I was just going to say it would be like, I assume that we'll get wiped out and then our species will get rebooted, but with no tech. And so it will get to kind of an equivalent of, say, the like late 1800s, early 1900s, the kind of around the period that people that sort of posh British gentlemen were going over to the pyramids and rediscovering them. That's going to be the same. There'll be a kind of there'll be a sort of neo-British scientists over your way or anywhere where there's a McDonald's digging up. What is this?
Go to the museum and just see a series of burgers behind glass partitions.
Yeah.
When they
also
started...
I was just going to say, sorry, Jonathan, Greeks demanding that the British give their burgers back. Hey, you found those burgers in Athens, give them back.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, Hamburg jumping up and down. They used to find, when they first went over to Egypt, all the British explorers / marauders, they found so many mummified cats that they didn't have anything interesting to do with them. They put a few in museums, they studied a few, but there were fucking millions of these things. And so they just would bring them back on ships to England. And then they were like, well, what are we going to use these for? So there were a couple of things they did. One, they sold them to a fertilizer company that just pulverized them all and put them on people's crops. And so yeah, and then the other thing they did. So occasionally there will be, like a field in England, they'll find some kind of Egyptian amulet or something, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's probably because it was around a cat's neck, and we just put the cat fertilizer on your crops 100 years ago."
That's crazy.
So weird. And then the other thing they did was make paint out of some of these mummies, and there used to be a company in England that made mummy brown paint. It was called that, and they made it right up until like maybe 1965 because they had so many of these fucking mummies, and then they ran out of mummies, so it doesn't exist anymore. But people used to just use this like paste created from pulverized mummies, and and I'd love that to be the ultimate fate of all the preserved burgers. Maybe they get painted onto a canvas in 2,000 years. Or used to fertilize crops.
Complete lack of value of, what's this? Oh, I don't know. It's probably a few thousand. We got tons of them. How old are they?
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Just turn them into fertilizer or paint.
Yeah. Just these items that were caringly preserved for thousands and thousands of years because they were of spiritual significance to an incredible ancient civilization. And we're like, oh, this would be cool if you just wet it. It would be a nice kind of baby shit brown color.
Do you have
a couple of quick shout outs to some stories that I missed and wanted to mention as part of my run through? One of them is this guy, David Whipple, and I just loved his name because
tripping on a Whipple dip.
Yeah, tripping on a Whipple dip, because I think the name that you would give to somebody from Utah who preserved a burger for 20 years, including by, I think for the most part, putting it in a coat pocket and then just forgetting about it. And then in 2013, he rediscovered put this coat on. There was an ancient burger in the pocket, and then he went viral. And then again, he did a round in 2020 with the same burger. He was just like, "Hey everyone, I've still got that burger." And
can I go viral again, please?
And surprisingly, everyone said yes. And also someone in Iceland who, when the McDonald's there was, I think there were 3 McDonald's that closed in 2009, and he purchased a McDonald's meal on the last day that they were operating and then saved it for posterity. And like a lot of McDonald's items, it lasted the test of time and ended up for some time being displayed in the National Museum of Iceland. So that's a nice, more edifying, more kind of, like not just accidentally leaving something in your pocket, but having the presence of mind to say, this will be an item of significance to the Icelandic people for generations to come. And probably will be the rallying point for anyone who's campaigning to have McDonald's brought back to Iceland, which I still think it's not there, which is somewhat surprising. But
I was going to ask you what your go-to. Do you eat McDonald's ever?
Occasionally I do, yeah. Almost exclusively on road trips. So if it's if I'm going up to Stawell, which is about a 3-hour drive from Melbourne, and we'll go sometimes through the Berlin McDonald's, beautiful place, and it's just a nice little treat on the way up. And usually, if Cint's driving, she will be a big fan of doing that and will insist on it. She'll get. She's big on nuggets, and
What about you?
I go for usually the most evil items you can get, like a double quarter pounder or something.
Yeah.
I had a period where I was not eating carbs, and you can get I tested it one day. You can get them to just give you like a no bun burger, which is just, I don't know, I wouldn't advise it. Because you just end up with this kind of, Yeah, that's right. You just end up with a pile of lettuce with burger buns. Without burger buns and with two big all beef patties on it and some messy sauce. And I think that, at least for me, it seemed that the only thing that was stopping McDonald's from having catastrophic consequences for my digestive system was the bun. So once you took that out of the equation, it was just not worthwhile anymore. So that's why I wouldn't recommend it. But what about you? You used to occasionally like to indulge?
It's a treat. I know as I'm eating it that it's sometimes food.
Yeah.
But I do have the app on my phone because I'm so addicted to value. I will, and my rule is pretty much unless I'm getting a sweet deal in the app, then I don't go. But sometimes, so McDonald's, if you're out there, it works. If you send me a sweet deal, I am going to come.
Do they send deals just for the exclusive people who have the app only to take advantage of? Okay,
yeah.
wow.
So all fast food apps have a coupon section. So the idea is that they offer you some discount and then you go, oh, well, I wouldn't have gone there normally, but I will go there now. But the problem with all these fast food places now is that they're just like in this inflationary era, it's just not it's not value at all in the way that it used to be. I'm looking at I saw a good TikTok about this. There was a guy who was basically showing a McDonald's poster at a bus stop that said, super value deal just this month on. So they were doing the thing of putting scarcity into it. So it's like a real just this month. And it was just like really expensive still. And he was going, McDonald's, that is not a fucking deal. Like, Jesus Christ, what is going on here? 2 cheeseburgers, a small fries, and a small Coke for $7. That's not a deal. Which was very true. And so I will have the app and I will check. I can tell you right now. How about this? How about we do it right now?
I don't know if we mentioned this on the show, but when you were in Adelaide for a while, a couple of years ago, you had the app, I remember, and you had entered your name as Big Fat. So they used to say this like inadvertently abusive messages like, hey, Big Fat, it's time for another burger.
So good. Yeah, I landed in Australia and downloaded the app straight away, and the first thing it asks you is to put your name in. And yeah, so I knew exactly what was going to happen. So I just called myself Big Fat, and then it was just saying every day I'd wake up with a message saying, hey, Big Fat, how about 2 Big Macs for lunch? Oh yeah, you guys have got my number.
You fucking like that, wouldn't you, Big Fat? Like, yeah.
I've got it here. Let's have a look. I might have to do some currency conversions. They're just not even that good deals. This is the thing.
Yeah.
I can show you this. We should be sponsored by McDonald's. Is it going to show it? I don't know if it's going to.
Not yet. There we go. Just hold it still and it will, I reckon.
No, because I've got the bloody. I'm still learning. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
I got,
One big tasty bacon menu and 6 chicken McNuggets or the McPlant nuggets. Fucking McPlant
so I can get
nuggets. Who's getting them?
The way they try and get you is they give you a deal, but they try and up your average order spend. So they'll say, "Oh, we got such a good deal for you. But you have to get like 2 Big Macs to get the value." And I'm just like, I don't want 2 Big Macs. That's not what's happening in my life. Fillet of fish, €3. What's that? So like 3.
How good's that?
So fillet of fish. So let's have a look. So €3 is 3 EU to AD is, so that's $5 Aussie for a little.
Not great, really.
No, it's not great. So I'm just going to have a look. Am I going to get any of these today?
If I have a fillet of fish, I'll be hungry about 20 minutes later.
Yeah. No.
What would this is a good way to benchmark it.
Yeah.
Economically, what would a like classic curry-versed little bowl cost me?
Yeah, I think less than McDonald's.
Okay.
Berlin Berlin was always somewhere where you could get cheaper and better fast food than McDonald's, which was something that was very different to any other city I'd ever lived in. Every other city that I'd lived, every other city, Adelaide and London, if I wanted cheap, delicious food, it was always McDonald's. It was always the cheapest, this was kind of dollar menu era. This was 10 years ago.
It was crazy.
£1 cheeseburger era. So I always had, what other street food are you going to be able to get for a fucking pound? Like nothing. So McDonald's was always the cheapest food you can get. And then I landed here, and McDonald's was a bit more posh than other food. You get big falafel, big delicious house. I'm using German, Hausgemacht, homemade falafels for €1 in some places, and there was no McDonald's items that you were getting over here for that price. So you typically can get still, I'm sure, currywurst and stuff like that for slightly less than you would. But it is hard to get. It's harder and harder to get a cheap meal over here. Everything's doubled just about doubled in price since I got here. When I landed here 10 years ago, you could get the classic doner kebab. Most doner places you were getting a doner kebab for €3 to €3.50, and now it's not at all uncommon in Berlin for them all to be €7. So they've all just doubled. And
so that would be one practical advantage, albeit not good for the ultimate consumer. But if you had bought a burger 10 years ago and it was preserved and still presentable, probably make a 300% profit.
Do you want a quick Dutchy's hot tip? I wanted to throw this out to you. Perhaps instead of stating it as a Dutchy's hot tip, I'll just ask you opinion. I know. I'll ask you what you do. Meeting a new person. It's sunny out. Everybody's got sunglasses on because it's sunny. John, this is Greg. Greg, this is John. You got sunglasses on. Greg's got sunglasses on.
Yeah.
At any point during meeting Greg, do you remove your sunglasses so that he can see he's never met you before? There's a right or wrong answer to this. What do you do, John?
I think the respectful thing to do would be to de-glass and then see your eyeballs.
Correct. This is the right thing to do. I've had several experiences in Berlin recently meeting new people when it's been a bit sunny out. And they don't for a second take their sunglasses off when you meet them. And it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to take age. It doesn't have to be a long thing. It can literally be, you don't have to take them off to have the whole conversation, but there does have to be a moment where you de-glass. Just wait there. We can leave everybody at home. John, I'm just going to leave you with John for 20 seconds while I get my sunglasses. John, you can just have a private moment with the audience. Slag me off here for 10 seconds.
Everyone, I'm now looking at the empty chair of Alexander Holland. Behind it is the green couch, where in 2022 I spent probably about 6 or 7 great nights. Here he is again.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Apricot Pepsi Holland.
Thank you. Excellent. So I'm just going to duck down. So you've met me. So this would be better, actually. It's better if you don't have glasses on and you're meeting me, because then it's like a different power dynamic. So your best friend Plumpkin introduces you to me, and they say, "This is my friend Al," and then I go like this. Yeah, g'day mate, how's it going? Al, nice to meet you.
Like it.
And then we get talk. I've got my glasses on now for anybody listening at home. And then we just talk for like, good one, Mike. Yeah. And so we'll be in a group, and the whole time. So you've met me, we've been chatting for 15, 20 minutes, and you've never seen my eyeballs. Eyes.
Yeah.
And all it takes is this. Sorry, go on.
Something primal in me doesn't like it. It's like
Don't trust
classic. Me. It's the classic, kind of meeting a stranger in Neolithic times. You want to see the whites of their eyes.
Correct. And all it takes is this, because look, I'm not saying you have to sit with the sun smashing you in the eyes, having a conversation with someone, but all it takes is this. So let's try again. Plumpkin says, "Hi. This is Alexander Holland." And then I might go, g'day, mate. How you going? And I probably don't want to make it too obvious, so I'll go, g'day, mate. How's it going? Holland here. Lovely to meet you. So, what have you been up to today? A bit of this, bit of this, bit of that. I'd say,
Nice.
I'd say, how's it
Good
been going?
self-awareness.
How do you know Plumpkin? And then you've seen them. It takes a second. You see the balls, and then it's fine.
Yeah.
And then it's fine.
Yeah. Nice.
That's a different
That's
thing.
good. I don't think a lot of people would think about that. And it's important. That does make me feel, I would say to you, Al, it's very nice to meet you. Can I call you Al, or is it just Alexander? I just wanted to mention that I really admire your self-awareness as a person because I noticed you deglassed for me there. And
Deglassed is great. Deglassed, despect. I love that you despect there. Despect. You remember the kids there used to be that campaign on Australian TV that said kids who respect despect.
yeah, that's right. If you want to derail, you got to re-rail, and if you want to respect, you got to despect.
That's a great note to finish on, everybody. Don't forget. If you want to show respect, you got to despect. Cool. Everybody, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Don't Praise the Machine. Don't forget to sign up to John's very special newsletter, which comes out every single week, and you can do it because we have a beautiful little landing page at dptm.org, and you can pop your email straight in. It looks great on mobile. I've even adjusted it recently so that the form, the field to enter your email address in, appears what we call in the digital marketing tech world above the fold, which means you don't even need to scroll. So that comes from newspapers, John. Above the fold it comes from meant that literally the important news, for example, the headline, you can see it if the newspaper's folded over above the fold. And so you want to prioritize the important information above the fold. And in the digital realm, that means that any information you can see on screen without having to scroll. So previously, the Don't Praise the Machine mobile form, you had to actually scroll, you had to use your finger a little bit to get to the form. But now everybody you'll notice, if you go to dptm.org, you don't have to scroll. You can pop your email in straight away.
Beautiful. Wow, that kind of attention to detail is what our listeners have come to expect and love.
That's how we've really, really grown. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, John Junior Boost Maloney.
Thank you, Alexander. Apricot, Pepsi, Holland.
And thank you, Don't Praisers. Have a great week, everybody, and we can't wait to see you next week.
At the podcast.